Hello again and welcome back to our course on PSE 15. In this section we're going to look at Instant Fix. We did do an Instant Fix earlier on in the course, and if you're an experienced PSE user, and particularly if you've used PSE 14, given that there are no announcements from Adobe about changes to Instant Fix, you may think that you don't need to cover this section. But in fact, although at this point in time I haven't seen anything from Adobe about changes to Instant Fix, it has actually significantly changed in PSE 15. And in this section I'm going to take you through this latest version of Instant Fix. For many users of PSE, they look at Instant Fix in the organizer and say, why do you have that there? Why don't you just go into the editor to make that change to that image? Because you've got the equivalent functions in the editor. And the answer to that is, if you recall back earlier in the course, I mentioned there are quite a few people who use the editor a lot, but the organizer very little or not at all. The opposite is also true. There are people that use the organizer as a filing and retrieval mechanism, but only want very basic editing facilities. And what's provided by Instant Fix for many of those people gives them everything that they want and need. So it's very useful having Instant Fix in the organizer. It saves you starting up the editor, and in some cases it saves you learning more complex tools. Let's then just do another Instant Fix, this time on this image. A little bit dark, I think, so having selected the image, I click on Instant Fix. There's the image in the Instant Fix editing window. At any time, if I want to go back to the grid, there is a back button at the top left. And as you can see, I have options at the top. I have View, which is Show One Photo, and View Show All Photos. Now this would be all selected photos. I only have one selected at the moment. Now the buttons on the right give me access to the Instant Fix options, and one of those is Light. If I select Light, I get a slider on the right, and the slider really works in two ways which are complementary. In one way, I have previews of how the image would be if I clicked on that particular preview. So the darkest option available there is that one. You can see that makes the picture much darker. The lighter one is at the top. But I'm not restricted to just those previewed options, because I can use the slider to work on a pretty much continuous scale in between those options. And of course, exactly which one I like will be very subjective. At any point, if I want to go back to where I started, there is a reset button. So revert to original file, bottom left, reset, takes me back to where I started from. So that's the light option. Let's look at the color option. Now again, I can click on a preset. Note the richer color. Note the less rich color. Note also the slider. I'll explain color adjustments later on. If I get to a point where I'm happy with the result, what I do is click on Save. So let me click on Save now. You'll probably be able to guess what happens. And if I go back to the grid now, you won't be surprised to learn that I've got a version set there with the original and my saved version. Let me select that new version, go back into Instant Fix again. Of course, I can do this as many times as I like and get as many versions as I like. Let's look at one or two other options on this screen. Down at the bottom, we have an editor button. Click to open photos in the editor. So if you get so far, or you decide to try something a little bit more sophisticated in the editor, that takes you into the editor. And if I make a change, let's suppose I make a light change here. Let's suppose I decide to go really quite a light setting there. If I click on Done without having saved my changes, what PSE does is to say to me, do you want to save the changes before exiting? If I don't, click on No, and I won't have a new version of the image. I mentioned just now multiple images. Let's suppose that you wanted to work on a number of images together. Let me select all three of these images of a pony into Instant Fix, and I can either see all three or I can choose one at a time. But if I choose all three, if I applied a particular fix such as light, that would be applied to all three. Now let me reset those and point out one other very useful fix, and that's this one. If you really want to combine some of the most significant fixes in one go and do what's called a smart fix, that's a smart fix. I think that's probably a little bit overexposed myself, but if you do want to take a picture which has got a number of problems and you want to quite quickly produce a better result, smart fix will often do the job. Note also that you have the option when you're looking at pictures of looking at either the after or the before using that little toggle at the bottom there. The other instant fix I'd like to look at quickly now is the crop option, and that's the top tool on the toolbar on the right. There are some preset sizes. Let's try a 5x3 to begin with. I should point out that when it comes to sizes, these are ratios rather than absolute sizes. The absolute size of an image depends on a number of factors, as I'll discuss later on in the course. But if you printed this image out now to the size of that crop box that you can see, it wouldn't be 5 inches by 3 inches or 5 centimeters by 3 centimeters or something else, because we'd have other factors that would determine the actual size. The ratio, the aspect ratio, would however be 5:3. But if you look at that crop box, at the bottom right hand corner there's a pair of controls, a tick sign that would commit this crop, and a no entry sign that would cancel the crop. So if I click on cancel, that's gone. Let's bring up the crop box again. If I tick, then I have actually cropped that image to that ratio. If I make a change like that in Instant Fix and decide I want to undo it, there is an undo button on the left. And if, having undone it, I change my mind again and decide I want to do it after all, I've got a redo button as well. Let me undo just one more time. Let me go back to 5x3. Something else you'll notice here in the crop box are these 2 horizontal lines, 2 vertical lines. This is making use of a principle called the rule of thirds, which I'll talk about later on in the course. So that's cropping. And just one final thing to mention here. If you look at the Organizer PDF, there's a link through there to this page, Fixing Photos in Elements Organizer, and it gives you some more information about Instant Fix. I think it's a really good idea if you look for those links in the PDF or by searching the Adobe website. And as we go through each topic, just find that topic and you'll usually get additional information and possibly additional examples as well. So what I suggest that you do is, having loaded some of your own photos into the Organizer, just try out Instant Fix on a few of your photos, and in particular see what you think of Smart Fix. That's it for this section. I'll see you in the next one.